Hi, this is Dr. John Schinnerer, Executive Coach, PhD in Psychology, and consultant to Pixar's Inside Out. Welcome to Mindset, the key to managing stress and creating success. About 5 years ago, I gave a talk at a continuation high school. Now, I had been giving these talks every month at this particular high school, and this school is filled with high school students that had faced challenges at traditional high schools for a variety of reasons: ADHD, depression, bipolar, addiction, pregnancy, you name it. So typically it was a group of about 80 to 100 kids, and I would go in and speak to them about how their minds worked, how their emotions worked, and how to be more successful. I was about to speak in the next 15 minutes, and the principal came up to me and said, we have a new student, and she's difficult. Like, no one's been able to reach her. She's a pretty hard case. And so I didn't think much about it. I went ahead and went into the presentation. I was about 2 sentences into my talk when this new student spoke up. She stood up and said, "I have a question for you. I'm black, I'm female, I'm a teenager, I live in a group home. Why should I listen to anything you have to say?" And I froze. And my mind's going, think, 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 think. And after about 5 seconds, I said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. On those levels, we're completely different. I'm white, I'm male, I'm bald, I'm middle-aged. And on those levels, we're completely and totally different. You're right. And here's what I can tell you. I've been studying the mind, and in particular mindsets and emotions, for the past 20 years. And I've got some information to share with you and some tools that you can try out. And they could make your life happier and more successful. They're free, they don't cost anything. If you like them, great. If not, you haven't lost anything. So try them out, see what you think." And with that, I rolled back into the presentation. A few weeks later, I checked in with the principal again. And this young lady who had failed out of every class in high school, who had been oppositional to every teacher she'd encountered, changed her mindset. And I don't know if it's because of what I said or something a teacher did or the principal did. I don't know. What I do know is that she changed her mindset and she began to try. She began to put forth effort. Her grades picked up. She got into student leadership. Within a year and a half, she had graduated high school and was actually the speaker at commencement. From there, she went on to Sac State and ended up graduating college. And this was a girl that very few people thought would even graduate high school. And I tell you that story just to give you a slight example of the power of mindset. So let me move to a different area: physical health, pain, the medical field. Dr. Fabrizio Benedetti and his colleagues studied patients recovering from a very painful surgery, thoracic surgery. So when coming out of surgery, patients are typically treated with morphine to help them out with the pain. They split the patients into 2 groups. One half was given morphine by a doctor at their bedside, so the patient was aware of it and expected a benefit. The other half was given the same amount of morphine by a pre-programmed pump, and they were not aware of being given the medicine. So same amount of medicine, the only difference was in their awareness and their expectation for pain relief. Well, those who saw the doctor administer the morphine and expected to feel better, and as a result, they had a 34% greater relief of their pain. Dr. Benedetti wasn't content there. Him and his colleagues went on to look at how mindset and expectations affect other conditions when patients are aware of the treatment. So they looked at when patients were aware of the treatment and expected to receive benefits. And what happened is they found that the treatments were much more effective. Anxiety sufferers received 20% more benefits from treatments that they were aware of and expected to receive the benefits from. Those with Parkinson's had an 11% greater decrease in their symptoms. So what we're talking about here is the placebo effect. Yet the placebo effect is not just about a sugar pill. It's a demonstration of how powerful and pervasive our mindsets are in bringing about positive results, whether they be in business, health, stress, intelligence, exercise, diet, or aging. Now, be aware that the nocebo effect exists as well. And you might be asking yourself, well, what's the nocebo effect? Well, the nocebo effect is when you don't believe something is going to help you, odds are it's not going to help you. And I remember telling this to a client of mine who was severely depressed, and the light bulb went off in his head, and he says, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what happens to me when I take Advil. It never helps because I never think it's going to help." So realize that the mind is quite powerful and it works both ways. Placebo and nocebo. So what is a mindset? Well, a mindset is a choice to set your mind a certain way. It's a choice to adopt a set of beliefs that you know to be beneficial. A mindset is a lens through which you view the world, a way to simplify the millions of interpretations of the world around you. And perhaps most importantly, mindsets can be learned. So when I was at Berkeley getting my PhD, I was taught that intelligence was largely fixed and unchangeable. It was just one of those axioms that we all believed, that if you were born with an IQ of 130, you died with an IQ of 130. Well, Carol Dweck at Stanford came along, and she showed that how you think about intelligence is critical to how successful and how smart you become. Dweck taught a group of seventh graders a growth mindset, and as a result, they scored higher on an IQ test. Not just a little bit higher, they scored 30 points higher. That's incredible. That's taking someone from an average IQ of 100 to a superior IQ of 130. We didn't think that was possible in psychology. Now, I want you to be aware that there's two views of intelligence and abilities. The first one is the fixed mindset. And in the fixed mindset, people believe that intelligence is carved in stone, that it is non-changeable, and that effort is seen as something put in by lesser people, by people not as smart. And so, as a result, they interpret failure as a lack of intelligence. And one of the underlying assumptions for the fixed mindset is if winning means you're a winner, then losing must mean you're a loser. Now, on the other hand, you've got the growth mindset. So this second view involves the following. Intelligence and our abilities are malleable and or changeable. And all of us can learn to become smarter and more capable. The key belief is that learning requires work and effort. And your potential is limitless, a la Josh Waitzkin. Josh was the subject of the movie In Search of Bobby Fischer, a world-class chess player. And once he became the best in the world at chess, he turned his attention to Tai Chi Chuan, a martial arts. Because he knew that he had this growth mindset, he knew through hard work and effort he could become better, if not the best, at anything he put his mind to. And amazingly, he became a world champion not once, but twice at Tai Chi. And now he's moved on to Jiu Jitsu. Another key in the growth mindset is the belief that failure is an opportunity to learn. One of the researchers that I'll talk about later, Ellen Langer, says, "I love to fail. I love to be wrong." And that's a belief that I think takes a little bit of practice for us to get comfortable with. Now, with a fixed mindset, people learn to withdraw from challenges and difficulties because they interpret it as they hit a challenge, a barrier. They think, I'm not smart enough. They don't want to appear stupid. and so they'll withdraw and back off. On the other hand, with a growth mindset, you learn and improve with each challenge you face. And this has been shown in many areas, such as management of people, problem-solving skills, negotiations, sociability, and in sports. So let me give you an example of the different interpretations in both the fixed and the growth mindset. When they are faced with failure, those with a fixed mindset blame themselves. They interpret failure as a lack of ability. I'm stupid, I don't have enough, I'm not good enough. They feel a little bit depressed and anxious. Their motivation goes down, they tend to give up, and they disengage and withdraw from the material. On the other hand, if you have a growth mindset and you encounter failure, you tend not to think of it as failure, so you don't blame anybody. You just think that it's a challenge to be overcome through more effort. So they interpret failure as part of a learning process. And people with a growth mindset look for lessons in the failure. What am I supposed to learn here? How do I get around this barrier? And they persist, and they look for other ways, new ways to learn the material. And they remain hopeful in the face of failure. So what happens here is you become more resilient. You become better able to bounce back after a failure or a challenge or a difficulty. So what is the key to success? The key to success is not merely perseverance, resiliency, focus, and/or effort. The key to success is the growth mindset, which fuels and underlies each one of these traits. And research has shown that you get more resilient, you gain more focus, more effort, and more persevering when you have a growth mindset. So your mindset is far more powerful than you realize. Let me give you another demonstration. Stress. What are your beliefs about stress? What is your mindset? Because for most of us, we believe stress is bad. And this message is quite prevalent in the media. But there are two sides to this concept of stress. There's a growing body of research which is showing that stress can have positive effects and it actually enhances our abilities. So the truth about stress isn't that clear. So then the question becomes, to what extent do our beliefs about stress dictate our response to stress? So let me share with you a stress study that took place at Yale. So Aaliyah Crum at Yale looked at 300 employees who worked at a company that was undergoing layoffs. Half of the 300 employees saw a 3-minute presentation arguing that stress is debilitating. The other half of the group saw a 3-minute presentation arguing that stress is enhancing. So here's some of the messages about stress that they received. In the stress is debilitating group, they were told the least amount of stress can hinder performance. Stress hijacks your rational mind, making it harder to think clearly. Stress deteriorates your focus, decision-making, drive, and performance. And the message was that skilled professionals tend to make the gravest errors when under stress. Now, in the other presentation, the stress is enhancing presentation, the messages were pressure fuels peak performance, adrenaline fuels your brain and body with blood and oxygen, thereby increasing energy and upping alertness. Stress is designed to enhance your focus, decision-making, drive, and performance. And the most impressive sports plays happen in the most heated moments. Now realize that all of these statements are true about stress. The messages are just slanted one way or another. So what was the outcome? Well, as a result of watching the 3-minute stress-enhancing video, employees reported 1. Fewer physical aches and pains, 2. Less insomnia and muscle tension, and 3. A higher level of engagement and performance at work. That's a pretty impressive list from a 3-minute intervention. A 3-minute intervention that changed their mindsets about stress. Let me give you another example. Aging. Is getting old inevitable? Or do we have a choice? Does it matter how we think about aging? Well, there's a famous study by Ellen Langer from Harvard where she took two groups of men in their 80s. And the control group was told that they would attend a retreat where they would spend a week reminiscing about the past. The experimental group spent 1 week living in a house, and the house was made up as if it were actually in the 1950s. They listened to radio shows from the 50s, they discussed news from the 50s. They were not allowed to bring up any events that happened after 1959. And they were to refer to themselves, their families, and their careers as if they were actually living, once again, in that time period. And the point was to give mental signals to the body to reflect the energy and biological responses of a much younger person. By acting as if they were in their late 50s instead of their 80s, the men in the experimental group actually changed their performance on benchmark tests. So interestingly, both groups showed improvement in hearing, memory, and grip strength. However, the experimental group showed all of the above, plus greater flexibility, less arthritis, a 63% increase in intelligence, better posture, and improved vision. I gotta tell you, nothing improves vision. Apparently nothing but mindset. And what's more, these men looked noticeably younger than 1 week earlier, as rated by independent raters. So if the mind can have such an impact on the body, what other potentials might exist in terms of mindset and healing? I mean, let your mind run wild, because we're just scratching the surface here. So let me share one more example with you, and that example has to do with exercise. So they took 84 women working as chambermaids or hotel maids in a hotel chain, and 2/3 of these women reported getting absolutely no exercise. So they split the group in half, and half of the women were given a 10-minute presentation showing them that their jobs actually qualified as exercise. You know, washing the sink, 200 calories, changing the bed, 230 calories, vacuuming, burning 250 calories. So their jobs qualified as exercise according to the Surgeon General. There was no other differences in workout routine. They didn't sneak to the gym, they didn't diet, they didn't do anything else differently. And what happened was pretty amazing. In the experimental group, 2 weeks later, these women who only got a 10-minute presentation were more satisfied with their work, they had lower resting blood pressure, lower hip to waist ratio, and they lost weight. All this from a change in mindset. All this because they began to believe that their work was in fact exercise. So you've now seen several examples of this power of mindset in areas as diverse as pain, exercise, aging, intelligence, and stress. And there are many more, such as those on anxiety, diet, vision, and realistic optimism, to name just a few. So you see, your mindset matters, and it matters a lot. So you want to pick your mindset. And a brief caveat, the power of mindsets are not without limit. It is true that what you do matters as well. So it's not like you want to just believe you're exercising and skip going to the gym. And many new studies show convincingly that our mindsets are far more powerful than we once realized. And the most exciting part to me is that by changing your mindset, you can change nearly any facet of your life in the blink of an eye. So let me give you some parting tips so that you can increase and improve your mindsets. You want to begin to practice mindfulness. Too many of us go through life mindlessly, and you've got a choice, and you've got one or the other in your life. You're either going through it mindfully or mindlessly. And when you're mindless, when you're not there, you're not aware you're not there. And the mind often drags us into the past and into the future. We have a hard time staying in the present moment. And one of the ways you can do that is by focusing on new things in your environment. On a daily basis, notice change. Notice new objects. Because this increases mindfulness and pulls you into the present moment. Things are always changing, even very routine situations. Pay attention to the present moment. You also want to cultivate curiosity. Be curious. Curious is really the antidote to anxiety. And the more you can tell yourself, I'm curious about meeting this new woman, I'm curious about this math class, I'm curious about this presentation on mindsets. The more curious you can be, the more you learn, the more you open up to new material, the better your life gets. Also, you want to focus on what you can learn from quote-unquote failures, because once you have the growth mindset, there really are no more failures, and what you can learn from challenges. You want to focus on the effort that you put in to a task or a goal over the outcome. So the outcome are things like grades in class, how much pay you get, whether or not you get the promotion, whether or not you get the new client. And you want to focus and reward yourself for effort. You particularly want to do this with your children. You want to focus on the process rather than the outcome. So when you're complimenting kids, try to train yourself not to tell them, gee, you're really smart. A better way to go is, wow, you really put great effort into that. I'm proud of you. Compliment their effort, not something fixed like intelligence. Realize also that the growth mindset is helpful and it's supported by science. We know from neuroscience that the brain changes rapidly in response to effort and learning. So as you develop more abilities, you strengthen your belief that you are in charge of those abilities, that you have some control over them. And then your mindset about mindsets gets stronger. You begin to believe in the power of mindsets. Tell yourself, I love being wrong. That will take some practice for most of us, I imagine. But the more you get comfortable with being wrong and getting engaged in the process of learning, the better you learn. And then just think for a moment what you could do when you change your mindset about things like bringing in new business, closing the deal, negotiation, public speaking, getting your message out. What are the limitations that you're placing on yourself by having a fixed mindset? Because we all have fixed mindsets somewhere in our lives. They're context specific. So be aware as you go through your daily routine, where do I have a growth mindset and where do I have a fixed mindset? And then challenge the fixed mindset voice. So you want to listen for those fixed mindset thoughts in your head. When you hear them, I want you to challenge them. When you hear, I can't do this, I want you to add one word. Yet. I can't do this yet. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. This is Dr. John Schinnerer signing off. If you enjoyed this presentation, feel free to check out my websites for more info at guidetoself.com and webangermanagement.com. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic day.